It's the Bird Emergency, the show where I get to talk to bird nerds about their bird nerdiness. Um, Usually, I pack in a scientist here and there and give it a shake and see what comes out. But today, it's a bit of a mixed bag because I'm not talking to a scientist. I'm talking to a photographer who is bordering on being a scientist because of what they are studying and how they're studying. Um, Wildlife photography sounds fascinating. Hey, this is the Bird Emergency. This is Charlotte O'Neill. Hello, Charlotte. How are
Hello.
you? Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, tell us, what's it like studying in Doc Martin country?
So I'm actually studying just to the south of Doc Martin country, and it's a really beautiful area. So Cornwall's well known for its amazing landscape. So to be studying kind of like wildlife photography and filmmaking down here, there's lots of amazing animals that you can see and lots of bird life, and yeah, there's a lot to kind of study. There's a lot going on, so it's a very nice place. It's quite ecologically minded in some ways as well. So in the
Now,
local area.
because I love Doc Martin, it's a favourite, a staple for me. Have you seen any chuffs nesting on the cliffs?
I haven't seen them nesting, but a couple of weeks ago I was out filming chuffs. So I was out filming them in Sennan. So that's right out west. And yeah, there's quite a few around. They've come back, and maybe I'll get to see them nesting at some point, but who knows?
Okay, I'm just looking for the best angle. I think we might have found it there. I think we'll stick with that one. Um, Before we talk about turtle doves, which I see often there is publicity about turtle doves in the UK and right through Europe, but why were chuffs such a big deal in Doc Martin? So are they hard to see? Are they weird sightings to turn up in? And our chuffs are woodland birds here. So why are they nesting on cliffs like seagulls and puffins?
So chuffs, chuffs in UK and Europe, red-footed chuff, they've got quite a very specified habitat that they need, which is generally grazed land, because they need the vegetation to be a certain height. And up until very recently, the habitat wasn't really existing in Cornwall, which is strange because chuff is actually quite a big part of Cornish heritage. It's on the Cornish coat of arms, and it's uh, it's quite a big, I guess, part of the Cornwall's identity. But because of changes in land use as a place, farming changed around the areas, they sort of disappeared. And then, luckily, about a couple of decades ago, they actually came back. So
Oh,
yeah.
good. If you tuned in for turtle doves, we're getting there now. We're getting there now. Okay, all right, Charlotte. Well, tur- turtle doves. Uh, I, they're not iconic in terms of British history and literature, like the swan is, right? But
I
but we
disagree in
oh
some ways.
good. Well, I was going to go into they are they are integral to the Christian Western heritage because of their appearance in the 12 Days of Christmas, right? So tell us what turtle doves actually do in the wild, and how likely are you to see one in any part of the UK? Where are they hanging out? Are they in Cornwall?
No, they are not in Cornwall. Unfortunately, I had to travel to Sussex to actually see my first turtle dove. So I've been bird watching all my life, and I've never actually seen a turtle dove. So I had to go all the way to Sussex in southeast England to a place called Knepp Estate to see one. Um, Turtle doves are found around the southeast of England mostly at this point. They used to be found a lot further west, and a lot further north than they currently are. But due to changes in land use and agriculture and things like that we'll probably go into, their range has been constricted a lot more to the southeast. So places like Norfolk, places like Sussex, and yeah, that general area.
So, are they a woodland bird, or are they adapted to light urban concentration? Where?
They're a farmland bird, so they're actually found in scrubland habitats. So usually they prefer large hedgerows, things like that. So hedgerows that are at least 4 meters high and 2 meters wide is the general definition of the type of place they like to nest in. And they also are kind of a more agricultural farm. So they're based around more kind of cereal crops, that kind of thing,
Okay,
rather than
so
livestock.
so do they need people? Do they need that disturbed habitat, or will you also find them in well, you can't really call the forest estate really even a completely natural habitat in the UK, I don't think. But do they need that human disturbance? Do they need farming activity, or can you find them in more wild places?
In the UK, generally, yes, they do need that kind of. They very much coexist alongside human activity, supposed to kind of existing. They have been found to be nesting in woodland, but a lot of their feeding activity relies on areas being cleared and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, they're very much defined as kind of like a farmland bird in the UK.
Okay, well, since they're pretty hard to locate and you had to travel a long way to see one, what made you choose the turtle dove to be the study of your dissertation, which is let viewers in on how I came to know about you, was you won a prize for your dissertation for your
Oh,
masters. Is that
no,
right?
no. I forgot. It was the. I've got my result back. That's what I
Oh,
posted.
I'm confusing you with somebody else. So,
Yeah.
sorry for making you too cool. So, so tell us, tell us why you chose the turtle dove, and what did the dissertation entail in the study of wildlife photography?
Okay, so the reason I actually chose the turtle dove was because I've been a bird watcher for most of my life. So I've been bird watching since was about 5, and the turtle dove used to be a very, very common bird around the UK. So in the 1960s was apparently the like peak of uh, its population, and I had never seen a turtle dove. I'd never heard a turtle dove. I grew up in Gloucestershire, and there used to be turtle doves there. There aren't anymore. So I thought, it's one bird that I haven't seen, and it's one bird that I want to find out why I haven't seen it. And I knew a little bit about it, but I just wanted to learn more and also see what we could potentially do to bring this species back from the brink of extinction, basically in the UK. Um, so for my dissertation, I didn't actually have to be photography based, so we could do anything concerning nature and culture, essentially. So I did it on how the changing culture of the countryside has impacted the turtle doves population, and I also kind of looked into also how potentially the turtle dove's place in culture could be used to potentially help the species. So yeah, that's.
Okay. All right. Well, you corrected me about their place in culture. So, what historically has been the cultural significance of the turtle dove in the UK?
So the turtle dove, so Europe wide, the turtle dove has always had a lot of symbolism. So it's been symbolic of love or commitment sometimes, and peace even. It, as you said, in the Christian tradition, there's been references to the turtle dove before. There's references in Christmas carols. There are folk songs, British folk songs based around the turtle dove, and I guess it's a bird that's mentioned every year, and yet, despite that, quite a few people don't actually know what it is. So it's something that's sort of almost fallen out of the public kind of like consciousness. I think despite the fact that you sing about two turtle doves every year, you might not necessarily know it as a species that exists in the country, if that makes sense.
Yeah, how many people have gone and seen a partridge as well?
Yeah, that is
In,
true.
in a pear tree,
In a pear
especially.
tree.
So, uh, I, it's a breeding migrant, the turtle dove in uh, in the UK.
Yeah.
So where's the threat coming from for the bird?
So the threat is actually coming from a lack of food available to the turtle dove. So turtle doves are granivores, and up until fairly recently, they relied on a lot of what's called kind of like weed seed plants. So wild plants that produce seeds at the level where the turtle doves can reach them. The thing is, the turtle dove has to feed on the ground, um, and so these kind of more low-lying seeded plants provided food for the turtle doves. These plants are things like, fumitory or fat hen, that kind of thing. But because of herbicide use, it's these plants have become more scarce, and turtle doves have been driven to use cereal crops instead, like wheat and rapeseed, that kind of thing. But because they rely on feeding on the ground, that means that they rely on spillage and also what's left on the ground after harvest a lot. So it's a lot harder for them to find food than it was, which means they have to travel larger distances. It's also down to the lack of breeding habitat as well, because a lot of scrub land has been cleared for agriculture, and also a lot of hedgerows are no longer managed or rather, they're managed in a way
That
that's detrimental to the turtle dove because they're no longer as thick or as high as
that
the turtle dove
that
needs.
they're tidy. The people are
Yeah, yeah.
tidying up the hedgerows. Yes. So uh, has the method of farming or is been impactful, or is it the choice of crop type that has meant that these lower standing weed species are harder to find for the bird? Like, is it that intensive mechanized um, and sort of greater yields per
Yeah.
acre that have caused a demise?
Yes, so there's been a push. So there's basically from World War Two onwards, effectively, there was more of a push to kind of use every single bit of land as much as possible to produce food, which is understandable. Um, but it has led to an increase in the use of chemicals and also mechanization, which the mechanization led to the removal of hedgerows in certain areas of the UK, so there was less breeding space. And it's also one thing it has that has had an impact as well, which has impacted the turtle dove's range, is the specialisation of farmland in the UK. So certain areas of the UK, whilst there used to be, you'd have mixed farmland, which had a mixture of everything. Certain areas now have more of one certain type of farm than others. So that means you've got entire areas that don't really have habitat that is that much suitable for a turtle dove. So, for example, in the southeast, there is more cereal crops and cropland, and then in the southwest, there is much more livestock farming. So you've got a mixture of certain things that are causing their decline.
If if there are suitable hedgerows, and this obsession with being tidy drives me bonkers. If only they'd learn to nest in walls, in rock walls, you know.
Yeah.
But is is livestock farming compatible with their existence, or does it need to be some form of mixed cropping that supports them?
It would have to be mixed cropping or agricultural, or just purely crop land. But
Yeah,
you can actually, though to be fair, you can create a particular habitat for a turtle dove. There is a higher agricultural scheme that's dedicated to it, an agri-environmental scheme. And so I think you could. You just have to. You'd have to make space for it. But
Now,
yeah,
I put Operation Turtledove in the in the notices for our discussion because that is quite widely known. I think that there is an effort to preserve or maintain the turtle dove population in the UK. But how much do you think? And you're coming at it from sort of a artistic sort of side with wanting to represent wildlife through photography. How much do you think the general public actually give a shit?
now that's quite interesting because I did a online survey. So there it's quite. So I've talked to some people from Operation Turtle Dove, and quite a lot of the general public, particularly those outside of agricultural areas, so those who are more kind of like from urban areas, wouldn't know what a turtle dove is, and you'd think that people probably wouldn't care all that much. But from the survey I did online, in fact, it was something like 44% of people said they'd never heard of turtle dove, but 96% said they would like to see it in their local area. So I think potentially if you raised awareness for it, people might become more because people are interested in birds in the UK. There was kind of during lockdown there was a big kind of boom in garden bird watching and stuff like that. So I think people would be interested. How much they'd care, I don't know, but I think there's a possibility. I'm hopeful.
Well, but the big question is that where the bird occurs is in farming communities. So, what it, is it the case that agricultural practices have to be carried out in a way that is detrimental to the bird? Like, can farmers easily coexist with the turtle dove? Um, it sounds like it's the agricultural practitioners who are not on board with stopping the decline. I don't want to make it their responsibility to save them, but the idea that we continue to change agricultural practices to the detriment of the bird, is that inevitable that will continue?
I don't think that's inevitable. I know that a lot of it is to do with subsidies, so what farmers kind of get paid to do. So of course you've got to it's but farmers have to kind of make their money to live, and also it's so a lot of subsidies. So if I remember rightly, there was some as a part of my dissertation, there was one article that referenced the fact that it was like 91% of subsidies or somewhere around that amount were towards environment practices which actually degraded the environment, whilst 9% were towards improving the environment. So I think it very much depends on what incentive there is. So I think there is talk of creating more incentive to put forward more kind of like environmentally friendly practices, and also Operation Turtle Dove and other conservationists have been working with farmers and landowners to provide turtle dove habitats. So there are people who are on board. I think it's a lot of just awareness raising, because a few people there's a bit of a problem I think with shifting baseline syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is, but
Well, let's pretend that I'm really familiar with that, but that because the audience probably isn't, I'd
yeah.
need you to explain it.
Okay. So shifting baseline syndrome is basically where each generation views the environment they were brought up in as the norm for how things should be. So, for example, when I grew up, there were, say, 90 sparrows outside. That would be normal number for me. And then I'd see the decline from that, whilst, for example, my parents might see say that, oh, there used to be hundreds of
or
sparrows outside.
thousands.
Yeah. But because it's a perceived norm for me, I wouldn't notice as much difference. And so I think as the turtle dove sort of disappeared, the younger generations haven't noticed as much. So I know that my mum, when we went looking for a turtle dove around Napa State, we finally found the turtle dove after 4 hours of walking. But she actually said she only just realised that she'd remembered this call from when she was a kid, and she hadn't realised for rest the her adult life that it just sort of disappeared. So I remember I was talking to someone who was working on turtle doves, and she said that the older farming generation, they remember, but the younger farming generation sometimes do not. So yeah, I think it's again a case of it's kind of fallen out of, people haven't realised that it's gone, if that makes sense.
So, to your understanding, historically, since we're talking about that that issue with familiarity over time, what were the historical populations numbers for turtle doves? Maybe let's talk about. Do you know between the wars or pre-industrial revolution? Is there any literature that sort of describes the numbers that they were occurring in areas where they're now gone?
So most of the research on turtle doves seems to have started in the 1950s and 60s. So the 60s was generally described to be kind of like the peak of the turtle dove population as it's been known. Throughout the years, agriculture has changed, so that's kind of like we've gone through agricultural revolutions, agricultural depressions, and things have happened between that. So scrubland has sometimes appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared again, that kind of thing. So it is likely that the population has increased and decreased of that. But in the 1960s, that's kind of like the baseline that's used, because it's when they were breeding at their natural levels. So to be fair, the reason that turtle doves are going into decline is because they're not breeding at the level that they should be. So in the 1960s, they were producing 2 broods a year. So, but now they're only producing 1, so their breeding season's been cut short. And so the population in the 1960s, so for example, 100 turtle dove pairs would produce over 200 fledglings, for example, but now they're only producing probably about the amount that's of pairs that they are. So it's
it's only replacement level at best.
Yeah,
That
and
so
it's decreasing by 17% per year. So because only 80%, only 80, if 100 pairs go, then around 80 come back.
So what's your gut feeling about the potential of saving the species? Is there enough being done quickly enough to maintain habitat?
I think so. There's enough work at the moment being done to maintain habitat where it exists, which is good. So yeah, so I think so. For example, like organisations like Operation Turtle Dove have been working since about 2007, and yeah, it was brought up with me that there's often a population kind of growth curve where a population, you see the results later than the changes happen. So, for example, changes would have been probably happening in the 1960s, but the population was still at a peak then, and then suddenly the curve changed, the population changed, and there was a little bit of a delay. So there might still be a delay in the turtle dove's recovery. I'm not entirely sure, so I hope so.
Well, do you know how long a turtle dove lives on average? Are they sort of 5-year, 7-year, 10-year,
No,
20-year?
I actually don't.
Because that would have an
I could look
effect
that
on
up.
that would have an effect on
Yeah.
The rapidity or otherwise of a decline or a replacement. I'd be guessing
2 years, it says here.
2 years. Well,
But in
that
yeah,
that's very short considering their migratory. That's only maybe two migrations.
yeah.
Okay, I keep saying they're migratory. Where do they migrate to?
So they migrate to sub-Saharan Africa, so places like Mali, and yeah, a lot of the turtledoves in the UK migrate through Spain to Mali, and there they live in Sahara type habitat and also kind of farmland. So in that area, they're kind of surviving a lot off rice, kind of like rice crops at the moment, and drought has also caused a problem for the species. So there's a number of different issues at play.
Um, are they hunted for food in the African and European part of their range?
So it seems to be that there's a little bit of hunting going on in Africa, and there was one book I was reading that said that people from Europe sometimes went to like hunt them in Africa as well, because there's places where they congregate and roost in big numbers. So they sometimes go there, and of course they do hunt them. There's been a bit of a in like over Spain and France and places, and also if they're flying through a different flyway than Italy and Malta and places like that. In Spain, there's been a hunting moratorium, so they're actually not hunting them for a year to see if they can increase the population by 5%. But yeah, so
And
there's
and of course, it becomes the norm that if people see them congregating in their wintering grounds in large numbers, they don't recognise that the bird is actually threatened because, well, I see lots of them every year. What are you talking about? You know.
yeah.
But yeah, you're looking at the entire population, pal.
Yeah, and if I remember rightly, so like from the EU, they created like this paper on the turtle dove and general action plan for its conservation, and it involved 50 countries. So that's quite a lot of different countries to work with on turtle dove conservation.
So it's a widely dispersed species, but the UK population comes down that what did you say it was the western flyway, the
Yeah.
flyway that goes down the Iberian Peninsula and then across to the top of Africa. So is is the population distinct? Do you know, or because it's a highly mobile population, does it disperse with into and recruit from other populations in Europe?
I'm not sure. So I think they found that turtle doves nest in certain areas do have a tendency to use the same kind of flyway, but they're not like genetic. I don't think they're genetically distinct. They're not like they've not separated out into different species. There are different species of turtle doves that they some overlap with in their African wintering grounds. But no, I'm not entirely sure. It seemed to be from the literature I was reading that they tended to stick to the same flyway, but there might be some changes.
And is it a widely studied species? Like you've just done a literature review, for want of a better term. Is it currently a widely studied species? Are there a lot of people working on it?
Yeah, there's quite a few. So I found studies from different European countries, and I found studies from Morocco and Algeria, studies from places like Saudi Arabia as well. So they're quite widely studied, and lots of studies from the UK. They're quite widely studied worldwide. So
What,
yeah.
what was the most interesting factoid that you pulled out from all the literature that you looked at?
Hmm.
Wasn't there was nothing that surprised you that you thought, oh really, turtle doves do that?
Um, they're so I can't think of anything at the moment.
That's all right. Well, it is late.
If it suddenly comes to me, I'll let you know.
Well, it is a lot later in the evening over there,
Yeah.
and very early Monday morning over here. So we're operating at other ends of the of the preparedness scale.
Yeah.
What now? Photography's your kind of thing. So let's geek out a little bit on your rig. When you're out stalking turtle doves to get a shot, what are you taking with you?
So I've got a Sigma kind of 170 to 600 millimeter lens. So that's a rather big one. I got it in lockdown over last year because, of course, I didn't have access to any university equipment. So I had to kind of like save up and get my own stuff. So that's the main one. Sorry, I think all the talking's giving me sort of like a bit of dry throat. But yeah, so when I'm like out taking photographs of birds or filming birds, that's what I tend to use. And then I've got a Nikon D300 camera.
A D300.
Yeah, 300.
Ah, gee.
Yeah.
So,
quite an old camera.
Yeah. Well, but the they all work, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that you can sort of impress on up and coming wannabe photographers, that you can head down to your local second-hand store and pick up something that will work. You just got to make sure that you get a suitable lens for what you're wanting to do.
Yeah, my camera's about 6 years old now, and it's still going strong. So,
so what do you usually like to photograph?
so I'm more of a filmmaker than I am a photographer, but I do like to photograph. I like to photograph a wide range of things. I like to tell stories basically through my photography or my filmmaking.
Okay, so is your filmmaking in leaning towards conservation stories?
Yeah, so conservation and documentary kind of style stories. So the first film I made for my course was a film on turnstones in St Ives, which is a place in North Cornwall, and I noticed that a lot of them had missing toes and stuff like that. And then, as I was kind of like with the population for a while, I actually saw that they were getting human hair wrapped around their toes, which was amputating them, and it was pretty horrible. But I ended up making a film about kind of how they'd moved into the urban environment, but they still weren't adapted to it.
Yeah, that's fascinating but gruesome at the same time. So, how does is the human hair just washing onto beaches from washing down the sinkholes of people having showers, or are people going and having haircuts at the beach? What's the deal there?
Well, it's actually because St Ives is a tourist spot, so it's just there naturally in the environment on the streets. So
it's just from shedding.
Yeah.
Wow. That. So.
And then of course things like fishing line and stuff like that can also impact.
Well, that's what would have immediately come to mind. I would have thought, well, it's discarded fishing lines and it's waste from those Port Isaac fishing boats from Doc Martin are causing all the damage. But human hair, that's
there you go.
Now, are you the only person who has become aware of that, or is that widely studied?
There was a study on pigeons that showed that pigeons that lived in parts of cities with a higher number of hairdressers had a higher number of amputated feet.
Now, I often look at the pigeons that come and almost please throw me a crumb. When I'm sitting on a bench in the city or something, and I often look at their feet. And same with the silver gull, our seagull here, doing the same thing, and think, how did that happen? Why have so many of you got deformed feet? But it's the hairdressers.
Not necessarily all of them. There's also other like diseases that they can get. So
And
but
and I
stuff
like
like bumblefoot and
I like
stuff
to
like that.
think with the seagulls that they're paddling along on the sea, having a chat with their friends, and boom, a barracuda or something takes off a foot. So
Yeah.
that um, that that stunned me. That turnstones are losing toes because of people's hair.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've got a photo that I took of a turnstone literally on the beach, and it was limping along, and it literally you could see the hair wrapped around its foot. It was
a big whack of matted hair. Disgusting.
no, you could just see the line coming off.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. Well, that has floored me. Nobody's making a hair-based attack on turtle doves, are they, Charlotte?
No,
No.
no, luckily not. Turtle doves have too much to deal with. They don't need that as well.
That's right. Wowee, wowee. So, um, with your photography and your filmmaking, often when people think of a film, they're thinking of a 90-minute epic with all the sci-fi effects and everything. What does a film entail for you? Like how I I know from recently going into editing and whatnot how much effort it takes to produce something that might be 10 minutes long. How long's a Charlotte O'Neill production?
So my productions at the moment are roughly around 5 minutes, sometimes under 5 minutes. The film I'm working on an animated film actually at the moment, and that one's set to be around 2 minutes 30. So that one's probably the shortest
Yeah,
out of my films. But I'd say that a film, what makes a film is basically the story it tells. So if it tells a story, and it doesn't even have to be that extravagant a story, it's a video that tells a story, then it's a film. It could be counted as a film, basically.
so how do you choose which conservation stories you're wanting to tell? Like, do you have like a book of ideas or a whiteboard or something where you're dreaming up the stories you want to tell?
So there are a few ideas. I have to say I don't often write them out. They sort of just float around, but in my head. But yeah, there are. So I just sort of I come up with ideas and then basically go with what's most feasible at that point in time. Sorry.
And as a lifelong birder, since you're reaching the ripe old age of graduating student, how how much of what you dream up of producing in the sort of near to medium term is bird focused?
So there is, yeah, there's a few different. So I'm interested in everything when it comes to nature. Basically, I'm a bit of an all rounder in that regard. But yeah, I just there are a few ideas I have that are surrounding birds, and there are a few ideas I have that are surrounding other things as well. So it's
Okay, well, what are some of the other interesting bird conservation stories that need to be told in the UK?
in the UK. So
Well, I'm assuming they're the ones that you're thinking about telling because they're all around you. Or are there some other bird stories that you want to get onto? Like, do you want to go and tell the Spix's macaw story?
so the story I'm currently telling with my film now is actually based in Australia. It's about flesh-footed shearwaters. So that's the animated film that I'm currently creating at the moment. But I'm trying to think of anything. I would like to tell the turtle dove story through a film. So whether that includes traveling to different places in Europe and maybe further afield to tell that story, and
Well,
going to places in the southeast, and yeah.
I'm sure you'd be open to some support to tell the story. So,
Yeah.
look out for that. What's the fleshy-footed shearwater story?
So flesh-footed shearwaters are a type of shearwater that breed between kind of Australia and New Zealand. So the population I'm focusing on is on a population on a place called Lord Howe Island, and the problem with flesh-footed shearwaters is they keep on feeding their chicks plastic, basically, because they mistake it for squid. So 90% of the shearwater chicks in, I think, 2017 had plastic in their stomachs. So plastic pollution is the main problem for these particular species of bird because they keep consuming it. So that's what I'm currently focusing on.
Episode 1 of the Bird Emergency with Steph Perel talking about seabirds and plastic pollution and whatnot. That was, that's it's not only seabirds, is it? Plastic is probably, apart from habitat reduction and the C word, plastic is probably the number one issue for just about every species on the planet.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrible thing. Now, how's that? I'm interested in seabirds. I live in the fleshy foot region, sphere of influence. I didn't know that was affecting the recruitment quite so much because, but birds like the shearwaters are never front and centre when it comes to publicity and awareness raising, because one, hardly anyone ever sees them unless you're out at sea. You don't see them, or unless you live in a locality where they come back and nest, you just don't see them. So, and they're brown birds, right? So,
yeah.
So they're no parrot, they're no cockatoo.
No.
Which is incredibly sad. Are you a seabird fan living in Cornwall now? Are you out looking on the cliffs? I mean, hoping for a stray puffin? Or?
I have partaken in sea watching before, so particularly at this time of year, what you see are gannets off the coastline. So they come and you can see them diving. So that's mostly what you see. And then, of course, you've got gulls. I absolutely love gulls. Most people hate them, but I love them.
That was going to be my next question about what's your local gull, and do you have a bunch of species of gull to check out?
So we've got herring gulls, lesser blackback gulls, a few greater blackback gulls, common gulls, black-headed gulls, mostly those types. So there's quite a big population of herring gulls in Falmouth, and where I grew up in Gloucestershire, there was quite a big population of lesser blackback gulls, and there's quite a few, and also black-headed gulls at that point in that place as well. Yeah.
So you can tell the black-headed gull because they got a black head.
Oh, only in summer though.
Okay. So they've got an eclipse plumage as well. So how hard are the gulls to tell apart in your neck of the woods?
So I'd say if you know what you're looking for, then they're not too hard to tell apart. So herring gulls have got pink feet, lesser blackback gulls have got yellow feet, and greater blackback gulls, because they're big, much bigger than anything else. Yeah, and then black-headed gulls are smaller, and they've got even if they've got the eclipse plumage, you could usually kind of see what they are. So
who's the bully boy of your local gulls?
Herring gulls.
They always get the chip.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. You've been a birder since a young age, so let's explore your nerdiness. What's your field guide of choice, Charlotte?
Collins Bird field guide.
and And do you have a new copy, or do you have the one that you had?
I
Did you
unfortunately
get?
don't have it down with me. It's back in Gloucestershire, so.
See, when did you get your first field guide?
I first got, so it was a bit. It was a guide filled with pictures. I first got it when I was about 5 because I'm pretty sure I was obsessed with birds and wildlife and stuff, and my dad thought it would encourage me to learn to read, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it did.
Well, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I sometimes tell the story. I was that little kid lying on the lounge room floor, learning how to pronounce all the Latin names and working out what all the Latin names meant, all those words meant. So, I I would encourage any new parent to get your kids a bird book, or if they're into frogs, get them a book about frogs or lizards, or
Yeah, I
if
had
they're
books on volcanoes and
yeah,
everything.
if they're into flowers, get them a little book about what's in your local patch. Um, yeah, encourage it, encourage it. Well, I'm guessing you're going to tell me that your camera is your favourite piece of kit when you're out in the field. But let's see if you prove me wrong.
Yeah, I would say it is. It can also act as kind of like binoculars if I forgot my binoculars, which I often do. So yeah, camera and lens is my favorite bits of equipment.
So that means you must have very, very strong arms for lugging the big lens around if you're taking long shots. Have you ever thought about joining the Micro Four Thirds world?
Do what?
Well, the smaller format cameras where you can actually get the same magnification with the much smaller lenses.
No, I haven't.
No. Oh well. Oh gee, you'll have to.
I know digital, so fully digital cameras that can do that. But is
Yeah,
that
yeah. Well, that it is the digital realm.
yeah?
But yeah, I've spoken to a number of people who say, "Oh, I'm so glad I swapped over because now I no longer have to carry 6 kilo of gear in my rucksack." So,
I do quite like the control you get with DSLR, though, still, but
yeah, well, you're an artisan, so yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Um, what's what's your favourite location for going bird watching?
So back home it was Slimbridge Wetland Centre, which is quite a well-known wetland centre. It's they've got their own captive bird populations, but they've also got a load of hides around kind of their reserve. So you can see kingfishers I've seen there, and you can see peregrine falcons. They've got a hide which looks over the entire wetland next to the River Severn, and it's absolutely amazing. You can see some incredible birds there. So that place is probably my best place to go, favorite place to go bird watching in total. But in Cornwall, so I'd say that I do a lot more kind of like sea watching. So there's like a walk between Swanpool Beach and Mayonporth Beach where you can walk along the coastline, you can walk along the cliffs, and there's lots of cormorants and shags and different species, and I've seen like kestrels and stuff around there as well. And yeah, that's probably my favorite spot in Cornwall. But
Uh,
yeah,
are kestrels a rarity?
so they're not a rarity. No, they're just slightly less common. So than I seem to remember them being when I was a kid. But yeah, they're still around.
What's been your best get in Cornwall? What have you been most excited about seeing?
I was I was most excited about seeing this pelican that I never got to see. I dipped it, as it's called, kind of like in the twitching
So
language.
did,
But
so were you chasing it around at every report?
so basically, it was reported at being at Devon, which is this place down the coast in Falmouth, and wasn't living in Cornwall at the time, but we were down to see a family member And so we decided that we were going to try and see it. And every time we turned up, there was this old couple that would stand there and just be like, "Oh, you missed it by like 10 minutes." We were just like, yeah. So we never got to see that.
I sometimes wonder if there's people who actually aren't birders, but they like annoying birders, and they'll follow the alerts. And so anyone who turns up after them, they'll go, "Oh yeah, it was just here. It was just here," even though it never was. But that's what they do. I'm really sorry. Marvelous too. There was a pair of them. Yeah, birders, amazing. What's your bucket list birding location? Where do you toss and turn at night, thinking about how am I ever going to afford to get there? Brazil.
I would quite like to go to Antarctica.
Antarctica. Oh wow, yeah. Wouldn't we all like to make that journey and maybe circumnavigate the Southern Ocean, looking at all the seabirds, and the plastic floating on the surface? Not too flash. Bucket list bird, Charlotte.
Bucket list bird. I'd have to think hard about this one.
well, you can maybe choose one or two. I did have someone the other day who had to choose a family. Couldn't choose a bird from within that family. Had to choose a family.
I think that like Andean cock of the rocks look cool. The ones with the funny orange heads.
Yeah,
cool.
and they're amazing displays.
Yeah. Birds of
Oh.
paradise and them would be awesome.
Okay, so that means you've got to go to New Guinea or to
Ecuador.
to South America, to Ecuador, Costa Rica, or something. Yeah, marvelous. So that leads me to probably the hardest one. What's your favourite bird?
That is the hard one. That is hard. Buick swan, actually. I'm going to, I think that's quite a strong one. Buick swan.
Okay, why is Buick swan better than the trumpeter or the mute swan or the whooping swan?
I just really like them. So again, it's kind of like associated with Slimbridge. So they go there every winter from their kind of like they migrate there from their breeding grounds in Siberia, and I just like them. They're quite like pretty looking, and they've traveled such a long way, and they're just really cool. You can identify each one individually by the markings on its bill, which is really awesome. It's like a fingerprint. So I just like them.
Are they holding their own?
I think they might be doing a bit better than they were. So there's been a lot of conservation action put in place to protect them, because there were problems with them being shot on their journey over to the UK. But I think I'm not entirely sure how they're doing conservation wise, but everything I've been reading, most of what I've been reading recently has been certainly positive. They've been like working with communities and teaching them how to identify different species and stuff like that, so that they're not shot accidentally, that kind of thing.
And I'm guessing that the Siberia and Central Asia is where they're more likely to be shot than in the UK.
Yeah, so they're not shot in the UK really. It's mostly from Siberia, that kind of area.
Well, hopefully, I must admit I like swans a lot, but Buicks isn't one that I really know anything about. Are they a big swan? Are they?
No, they're quite a little swan.
Okay.
They're smaller than a like trumpeter swan. So yeah, they're like their smaller cousin.
And what about the black swan? How much do you like the black swan?
Oh, I do like them. Yeah. They've got quite a few of them at Slimbridge, but in the captive breeding population.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're quite nice. There are a few feral ones in the UK, I think, if I remember rightly. There have been a few that have escaped, but yeah.
I always like that idea that when the European seafarers and explorers arrived in Australia, they saw the black swan. I thought, how's that possible? Black swans? How did that ever happen? And then I wonder about the Australians who head off to Europe and go, what? Swans here are white? What? That's insane. I used to look at those children's books when I was a kid and see the mute swan. You know, they're always in all the things. And thought, that's crazy. I like black swans much more than white swans. They're crazy. Right, Charlotte, what's next on your turtledove adventures? Are you going to make your turtledove film?
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. I probably would have to get some funding for it, but we'll see what happens.
How would you go about that? Is that a GoFundMe page, or are there bodies that?
There are some bodies that will, depending on what the nature of your film is, that would provide funding. But there are also, yeah, of course, you could do a GoFundMe. I'm thinking for my film currently that I'm doing that I might do a small GoFundMe to raise money for like a soundtrack and also maybe put some money towards the actual birds conservation. But so yeah, that's one way to raise like money for a film, but grants and stuff definitely do help.
Well, I hope you get a grant and some GoFundMe.
Yeah,
that would be good, and that you can head down to Mali and see a massive flock of turtledoves. But be careful if you go to Mali. All right, it's bit scary. I think bit scary for white folk with cameras looking at nature. I don't think that's don't think Mali's a classic tourist destination just yet, is it?
I don't know. I haven't done much research into it. So
I think there's a civil war raging in Mali, so I think that's part of an issue. All right, Charlotte, thank you so much for learning me about turtledoves. What should people do if they want to help preserve turtledoves or get involved in knowing and loving turtledoves? Are there any resources apart from the Royal Society for Protection of Birds? Have obviously got Operation Turtledove going, but are there local movements or local projects?
I think it's mostly Operation Turtledove. So I would recommend everyone kind of check out Operation Turtledove. Do check out the RSPB as well. I think Operation Turtledove is mainly running all the kind of localized stuff in the southeast. I don't know much about I don't think much is going on in the southwest currently in regards to turtledoves in places like Gloucestershire and stuff like that. So I'd say that RSPB and Operation Turtledoves are kind of, and also there's one in Yorkshire as well. So they're trying to improve turtledove numbers in Yorkshire. So I'd check that out.
And if somebody is keen to support your GoFundMe when it starts, Charlotte, where can people check out you on the socials?
So my Twitter account is O'Neill _ Oh, wait, hold on. Is that right?
Don't worry.
No, Lotty _O'Neill with a double L. So that's it.
And this is where I get to go. It'll be down in the links. It'll be in the show notes. Yeah. So as long as you don't mind people checking you out, and can they see any of your film making output to date? Have you got anything that's out there people can look at?
Yep, I've got stuff on my YouTube channel, so check out Charlotte O'Neill on YouTube, O'Neill with a double L, and so it should all be on there. And then also there's some stuff on my Instagram as well, so which is O'Neill_Lottie. So yeah.
Okay, so of course down there in the links in the show
Yeah.
notes, I'll link it all, and I'll be interested to check out your YouTube. I didn't find you there yet, so that'll be cool. Okay, well, happy Sunday evening to you, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Thanks for rounding off your weekend on the bird emergency. For those of you on my side of the world, have a lovely week coming up. Remember, be nice to birds. The best bird is every bird, right, Charlotte?
Yes.
Correct. Thanks so much, Charlotte. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I'm Grant Williams. Bye.
Right.